Welcome back to another edition of Riding Home. Dean Legge and Matt DeBary. Matt, JT Daniels coming back for Georgia, and this is what begins is stuff like how can he win the Heisman? So let's not go that far, but how can he become a Heisman candidate? What's he got to do, and when does he have to really perform?
He's got to distribute the football to not only George Pickens as much as he can, but get the ball down to Kyrus Jackson, get it to Jermaine Burton. He's going to have to connect with Arian Smith deep. I mean, we saw what Joe Burrow did. We saw what Mac Jones did. You have to have explosive plays and be able to occasionally hit a 60-yarder down the field, a 75-yarder, flip the field, have those big momentum-changing games. He's going to have big throws against Florida for sure. They play Clemson and Auburn at the beginning of the year. Hard to have a Heisman moment then, but he's got to be consistent. He's going to have the numbers. And if he can distribute the ball to everyone, including the tight ends, and do everything that Todd Monken is asking him to do, I think at the end of the year, he should have the numbers to be considered. He's going to have the wins too. But if we took his last 4 games, Dean, and put that over 12, 13 games, those are great numbers. So there's no reason to think that he can't do that in 21.
I do want to get to some of his performances over the last, few games. It's really the thing is the guy's probably going to be him or maybe Matt Corral at Ole Miss. There's so many quarterbacks have left the league, but JT Daniels is a guy that I don't know if I want to say exploded onto the scene. But when your first performance is 401 yards, there's something to be said for that. His worst game, in a way, was at Missouri, I guess. Anyway, he went 28 of 38 for 401, 4 touchdowns against State, 10 of 16 against Carolina with a touchdown and a pick, 139 yards, 16 of 27, 3 touchdowns against Missouri. And then, of course, the come from behind win, driving the field against Cincinnati to win it, 26 of 38, 392 touchdown interception. That was his worst game, you and I thought. Yeah. And he had 392 yards and a touchdown.
He has not been perfect. We've seen him miss balls and underthrow some deep balls.
Yes.
And that's something that's something you can work on in the offseason, just building chemistry deep with guys. I don't think he's realized how fast Arian Smith is. Because even on a quick drop back, he's throwing at 60 yards in the air, and Arian's still having to kind of wait for it. So he's definitely got some speed. And again, we'll see. I don't know if the knee was even 100%. The last 4 games either.
He didn't have it on him though. After a while.
So 100% JT Daniels. I think the arm strength will be a little bit better. He can plant on, I guess, the knee a little bit better. But if he's 100% healthy, I would assume the arm strength will be even better in a whole offseason in the weight room and stuff like that. So I expect him to be better, know the system more. He'll have the spring. I think the sky is really the limit for him in this offense. I mean, Todd Monken knows what he's doing. The guy made Brandon Weeden a first-round pick. Are you kidding me? I mean, he should love what he's got with JT Daniels.
So, he obviously spent 2019 hurt at SC and transferred over. But I do want to say real quick, twice at Georgia, he threw for more yards than he ever did at SC in 2018, his freshman year. He never had a 4-touchdown game at SC. Only once did he have a 3-touchdown, 0 interception game at SC, which was the Washington State game. He had 14 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. When you watched JT Daniels as a freshman at SC, he was not great, Matt. And when I heard what I did from the insiders at Georgia about, he's okay, he's not great. Kirby backed that up. That was at the beginning of the season. Kirby backed that up in the fall, saying, he was not, performing great and all this stuff. But his progression really turned on for Georgia and himself. That's as the season progressed. When there's no question that the reason they stuck with Stetson was twofold. Number one, Stetson was playing pretty well until about halftime of the Alabama game. Number two, what they had to deal with was JT Daniels' performance in those scrimmages, which was underwhelming for what he is and what he's shown to be. And so it's not surprising that they did that. Can he improve? How much can he improve on what he did in 2020, those last 4 games? Because it's only 4 games. It's not a lot.
Yeah, he seemed fairly above average accurately, but he's going to have to hit those deep balls a little bit more consistent. If you want to win a national title, we've seen it. You have to score 40-plus points a game. You have to be able to score at will and do it against good defenses. You're going to see great defenses at the end of the year, especially in the playoffs, I would assume. So you need a guy who can win you games with his arm. I mean, Jake Fromm, I won games with particular throws, not with his arm the whole game.
Right.
JT Daniels, we've seen he put the team on his back against Mississippi State when they could not run the ball, and he won that game. They have a quarterback who can do that, put up 400 yards, throw you connect on a 60-yard bomb when you're down 7 and things are looking bleak and you're not running the ball. He brings another element. I mean, I don't want to bring Jake Fromm back into this because I don't think it's fair, but he never had a 400-yard game, 4-touchdown performance, you know? He wasn't that guy. They have a totally different quarterback now who can do different things for you and put up numbers we haven't seen since Aaron Murray.
Well, the problem that you've got to confront right now if you're a defense is that you're dealing with a guy here who is, with one drop back, he can get you 50 yards down the field, no problem. This is not a close to the line of scrimmage game. I'm just looking back at Jake here, and he really struggled in 2019. He did not have a single game over 300 yards. In 2018, he had one game, the Alabama game, where he really did play well in the SEC championship game.
I will say, Dean, and we talked about it during when Jake Fromm was here. You don't want him throwing the ball that much. You don't want Jake Fromm to do all that. But now you need a quarterback who can do that. You're not trying to sign a kid just to be like, okay, well, he's good and all. He could lead us, but we don't want him throwing for over 250 yards. We don't want him to have this many attempts. You can't have that anymore.
Yeah, you can't. We've gotten to the point where the quarterback, well, it's been the most important position the entire time, no matter what, anyway. But it is increasingly more important than we even suspect. When you look at Fromm's best game at Georgia ever was an 18 of 26, 326-yard performance against Missouri as a freshman, where he had 2 touchdowns and an interception. He also went for 301 and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions against Alabama. He really played well in the SEC championship game against Alabama. They lost the game, though, so no one remembers it.
Right.
I think the issue right now is as defenses try to deal with Georgia and you look for weaknesses in the skill players, you just don't see a lot of them. There's not a lot in the way of defensive weakness, Matt.
Georgia's weapons, especially at wide receivers, looking like what Alabama has been turning out, what Ohio State has. It's not just one guy. They've got a lot of guys, like killers, like we say, game changers who can take a screen pass the distance. Doesn't have to be George Pickens making every big play. They got speedy guys, twitchy guys who can pick up yards after the catch. That's what you see with Devonta Smith. That's what you see with Jalen Waddle. Those guys can burn a DB and connect 60 yards down the field, but they can take a little quick slant to the house too, and that's what Georgia's looking for, more explosiveness there. And they definitely have the weapons. If Jermaine Burton continues to progress, if Don Blaylock comes back healthy, Karis Jackson's in his 4th year. He should be as reliable and dependable as he's been. And then you got some young, hungry guys like we talked about, Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint when he's healthy. Demetrius Robertson coming back for an 8th or 9th year. He's not getting any slower. He's a guy who could have the potential to break a long play. We haven't seen it a ton, but he's been around for quite a while now, and I do think that he played a little bit more. He had a few catches when JT came in. I think he had 2 or 3 catches, against Cincinnati. So he's still a body they can use that people have kind of forgotten about already. But like you said, the weapons are there. The speed is there. You've got to be really happy if you're Todd Monken designing plays for this group of guys this year.
I do want to read something that I wrote just after the Mississippi State game. Says three of Georgia's top four wide receivers, Jermaine Burton, George Pickens, and Demetrius Robertson, all had their season high for the longest reception in a game against State. The team's top receiver this year, Kearis Jackson, didn't top his season high, which is a 49-yarder, but he did have a 40-yard catch, which is his third longest reception of the year for a receiver. It was also the game-winning score. Did you leave that Mississippi State game realizing what Georgia had, or did you? Because I didn't, and I still don't know completely, but did you think that he was as good as he's played?
Yeah, I thought he played really well, and I thought simply because they couldn't run the ball that he had even more pressure on his shoulders in his first start to get this offense going. He probably would have looked a little better if they had that run game to help him out a little bit, but they didn't, and he still looked great. But it was the specific individual throws that was like, wow, that's an NFL throw. That's an NFL throw. There's another NFL throw, hitting Jermaine Burton down the sidelines, hitting him for a long touchdown. The first touchdown pass to George Pickens, he's rolling out to his right, threw it off one foot. It was an absolute dart. So from that perspective, oh, wow, Stetson definitely can't do this. Jake Fromm couldn't do this. So it was easy to see the arm talent that he brought initially. Now he still has to continue, to develop and elude sacks because he's going to get sacked. He'll escape on here and there.
He did a pretty good job against Cincinnati in that game-winning drive.
Right. Yeah, he did. But he's kind of sackable if there's a few guys coming at him. I mean, he's a little bit like Matt Ryan in that way. If you get two or three guys in his face, dude's just going to go down, and that's better than fumbling the ball. As long as he doesn't turn the ball over,
right,
you'll live with that because occasionally he will torch a secondary deep, and he should be able to put 40 points up a game with the schedule they have. There's not a lot of defenses he's going to be going against who should be putting a ton of pressure on him and forcing him into bad decisions.
Well, it's always talk about the Heisman with guys who are starter quarterbacks at Georgia. We haven't seen a starting quarterback at Georgia ever win the Heisman. Maybe JT Daniels will make a run at it this year. We'll see. Dean Legge, Dog Post, Matt DeBary joining me for Riding Home. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the website.